Hello, welcome to She Became Visible. I have a fabulous guest on today, which is what I say every time, but that's because I only have fabulous guests on She Became Visible. And we're going to talk about getting fit today. And we are going to talk about getting fit in the different seasons of your life. And we're going to talk about the 20-year-olds that are having pizza and a margarita and running 20 miles and getting themselves so fit. And then we're going to talk about the 60-year-old who watched Jane Fonda, who went to step classes like me, and who are now walking with their girlfriends every morning going, what the heck is happening? Why am I getting a belly fat? Why am I not losing weight? My husband had decided to eat only 4 hot dogs instead of 2, and he's lost 10 pounds in 3 days. What is going on? So we're going to talk about that. So let me bring on Valerie Luzvardi, who I met at the Wasatch Warriors bodybuilding competition that I participated in. And I'm going to have her be the expert. I'm going to ask the questions. Hopefully they will be the same questions that you're asking yourself. And we're going to get this figured out because look, one of my favorite people in the whole entire world is Dr. Stacy Sim. And one of the things that she says is women are not small men. And everything you've heard, everything you read about fitness is based on data and research that was done on men. And guess what, ladies? We're different. Our bodies are different. And so part of the frustration for women is they hear these men influencers. They talk about fasting. They talk about, 3-day fasting and working out when you're fasting. And Dr. Sims will tell you that is the worst thing in the world you can do as a woman. So Valerie and I are going to talk about things like that. And hopefully this will be a podcast that will help you to at least change your mindset, think a little bit. And then also I want you to find Valerie on her Instagram because guess what? She is a trainer and she does online training. So it doesn't matter if you live in New Mexico or Connecticut, she is going to be able to help you out. So let me bring Valerie on. Hello.
Hello, Rene. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. And let's just, for a second, I just want to highlight your physique at Wasatch Warrior. You crushed it. Looks so good.
Well, thank you so much. It's one of those things where this was my last one I did in San Jose in December. And then they introduced the new fit model. And I was like, yay, this is fabulous because I just can't seem to get that little bikini shoulder strug in. And so I thought this is going to be the best thing for me. I have to tell you, I wasn't happy. I just got my pictures back and I was like, oh, I'm just going to throw those in the garbage, not happy at all. One of my biggest frustrations, and Valerie, you can explain this to the world, there aren't enough categories in these bodybuilding competitions. And I think I understand it now, but the masters category is 50 and above. Now, I hate to break it to you ladies that are 50, but you're not old, okay? I know, that's the new thing. 52 years old and look what I can do. And I'm like, oh, Lordy Lord, I wish I would have started weightlifting when I was 50. What a difference it would have made, because our bodies are different. Our hormones are different. Our metabolism is different. And guess what? Our skin is different. There's a reason why Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't take his shirt off anymore, even though he's in great shape. He's 80 something years old. And I'm telling you, ladies, 80-year-old skin does not look like 30-year-old skin. It's just part of the aging process. So the whole idea is you do the best you can and you look the best you can. And as you age, and you'll have to tell me what your 61 and 62-year-old clients say, it's about being strong. It's about longevity and being able to do the things you want to do in this last season of your life. It might not be looking like the 20-year-old in a bikini competition. So tell me what you think and what is the feedback you get from your aging clients? Because you do, what's the age range of the clients that you serve?
So I have a 17-year-old that I'm working with right now and all the way up to 64, I think is my age range.
Wow.
So
and how did the 64-year-old, what was her motivation to hire you?
She wants to learn how to train so that she can build muscle because you still can build muscle in menopause. Like right. You can do that. And so that's what she's doing. And we're also working on some fat loss. She had the experience that a lot of women have when they go through perimenopause, where they start to get a little more fat around the belly. So she has this belly fat that she is working to lose right now as well. So that's her big goals.
I remember watching, and this was years ago, some kind of a PBS type special on TV. And they had these two animated babies. And they had these two babies. This was a male baby. This is a female baby. And the babies were twirling. And they were showing their bodies, how their bodies age and what 2-year-olds look like and what 3-year-olds look like. And then puberty hits and how the male body changes and how the female body changes. And then as it aged, the testosterone is dropping for the men and the estrogen is dropping for the women. And all of a sudden, their bodies are exactly the same. By the time they were like 80, everybody had a belly. Men have man boobs, women have man boobs, and it was like, this is what happens when our bodies age and our hormones are kind of leveling out. And I thought that is fascinating because, you look at a little 2-year-old. When I was raising my kids, they could be naked. Now that's like perverse, but little 2-year-olds, and you can't really tell the difference unless you're looking at genitals, right? Their body, little tummies, cute little cheeks and the whole bit. So, but then as they go through puberty, the men's shoulders get broader and women's waists get smaller and their hips, it's all biological. And then as we age, the men start crying over the least little thing and the women are like, shut up. It's like, okay, wait, what's happening here? We're reversing our mental thing. So it's fascinating. But the thing is, it's truth. And you just got to know, like somebody like you, what's the first thing you tell your 64-year-old clients?
Well, it depends on where they're coming from. So context is key, big time. My other client who's about the same age, she is a little bit different. And so I think maybe if I share her experience, that would be something too that people could relate to. She came to me as a reformer Pilates diehard fan. She was doing reformer Pilates 3 or 4 times a week. And she travels for work. She's a very busy working professional. And so she's always traveling and doing the reformer Pilates and loves wine night with her friends, like loves drinking. That's her. So she's this she has so much vivaciousness, for being in her late 50s. She's in her late 50s. She'd never strength trained before. And she didn't know about prioritizing protein and how that's very beneficial for helping with building muscle, and strength training, how that's helpful for increasing bone density and things like that. So with her, taking her to the gym, teaching her how to lift heavy, and I'm doing this all through online coaching. So helping her to lift heavy and changing the way she's looking at nutrition, getting more whole foods in, eating more protein. She's been a very fascinating case of you can absolutely build muscle no matter what age you are, especially for somebody who has never really trained before. So she's in this newbie gains era where she's totally changed her body composition. It's phenomenal. She's such a poster child for me. I'm like, look it doesn't matter how old you are, you can do this. So for her, getting started, it was like helping her to see the importance of weight training and how getting in there, lifting heavy and challenging yourself like that, she can do it. It doesn't matter that she's older. She's still has that ability to go in there, and we can select exercises that can help her to push herself without injury.
Okay, interesting, because I'm sure there are people that were watching that are going to say, but wait, you said she's a diehard Pilates person. Why isn't that the same? Why does she also have to go and do weight training? And why wasn't Pilates giving her the body makeup that she wanted?
So when you're doing Pilates, you're stretching, you're doing all these stretches and you're not getting that tension that you need on the muscle that you get when you're doing resistance training, like specifically hypertrophy training. So, because we can go to circuit classes and do these classes where we've got the little light dumbbells and stuff, but that's not the same as actually getting some good load on the muscle, creating some tension that gives you the stimulus needed so that you can build muscle. It's very hard to build muscle, which is a big misconception too for a lot of women, is they think, oh, I don't want to lift heavy because I don't want to look like a man. Yeah. We both know that's not the case. It's really hard to put on muscle.
That's so true. And I think the misconception comes from if you Google or if you Instagram search bodybuilders and you see the women that compete in the physique, some of the other categories
Yeah,
that are
figure. Yeah.
figure and physique, they're huge. And they really do. That's like a look that's like, oh, I don't want to look like that. But that is not a natural bodybuilding result from just weight training. There's a few other things involved in for women to look like that. And I think that's why women look at that and they go, well, I don't want to look like that. So I'm not going to do heavy weights. And the reality is, I had someone come up to me in the gym yesterday and she said, how long have you been doing this? And it's kind of like, I don't know, 10 years. And then I hear somebody like, Kim Kardashian that's like, I built 16 pounds of muscle in 3 months. I'm like, shut up. You did not, and
Only.
yeah, seriously. If only we could do a 6-week program or a 90-day program and this kind of stuff. And you can make changes, but this idea that you can put on muscle that easily, it's not. It's hard. And it's kind of discouraging for someone to say, well, in a year, these are the changes we're going to make. It's like, in a year. Because we're in an instant gratification world, right? Everybody wants the 6-week challenge or the 12-week challenge. But I want to show a picture of one of your clients. I met her backstage when we were doing the Wasatch Warriors, and I just love her. She's probably my daughter's age, which here's another problem with getting into the fitness world at my age. It's like all my friends are 40. I don't have a lot of 70-year-old friends that are at the gym with me. I'm kind of like, I don't want to play pickleball. I want to go work out. So I don't have any friends. But anyway, let me show you. Okay, so this is Eliza. And she is just fabulous. And I don't know how we got to talking, but she has a daughter that's the same age as one of my granddaughters. And they're both about, ready to graduate from high school. So we had this connection and we were talking, but her body is amazing. Tell me how long this took. And I mean, this is a woman that I'm sure in clothing, she's a thin woman, right? I mean, she didn't have an extraordinary amount of weight to lose. People would say, what are you talking about? You're fit, But the difference in her body, tell me about Eliza and how this transformation came about.
Okay, so Eliza has been with me for about 1.5 years. So this picture was her second check-in picture ever, and she does weekly check-ins. You can tell like she's a little bit timid. You can see her shoulders are a little bit hunched. Also, you can tell she doesn't have these banging delts like she does over here in the right photo either. So we're just getting started. She came to me with a marathon running background. So she is a big time marathoner.
Okay.
Lots of running. And she would go and lift weights, but she was one of those people that would go to exercise versus go in to train. So sometimes I like to do that comparison, exercise
I love that. Yeah,
versus train. And so she would just go in and she'd be like, 3 sets of 15 reps. And as soon as she got to 15 reps, she was good. And she would, bounce around the gym doing different exercises. So when she came to me, it was making that adjustment to actually training really and improving her execution on these movements. So she would send me videos with her weekly check-ins and I tell her how to make these tweaks to make improvements and also telling her to slow down the tempo. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes to get her to that point where she decided like, hey, I just saw you go through your contest prep. I think that I might want to do that. And so I said, yeah, I think that's great. Let's work on improving mindset with nutrition because there was a lot of things that just negative nutrition behaviors that she had to work on from years past where it was an all or nothing mindset that came with her food. She would feel like she was fluffy. And so she would go into really low calories, but then the weekend would come, she would make cookies with her kids and then eat like the whole pan of cookies. And then she would feel disgusting. And then she would go back to, starving herself, essentially like a deficit. So it was just this like vicious cycle that she was in. So there was a lot of work that we not only had for the gym, but also with her mindset around nutrition that we worked on before we moved into the prep. And then she had about a 15-week prep, I think. Like you said, she's already very lean. And so there was a lot of body recomposition that happened for her. So it wasn't a lot of weight loss. It was maybe, I think she lost overall about 10 pounds of weight. But her physique, I don't know where those muscles came from. Like all of a sudden there's a picture, like a check-in picture, and she's just vascular and these delts are popping. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What's happening here?
Yeah. I think she is about 40. Is that right?
She's 47.
47. Okay. She's a little bit older because I don't know. We were there backstage, Eliza and I finally said to her, I said, that girl looks so much like Elizabeth Smart. And she goes, it is Elizabeth Smart. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because, and she goes, we're about the same age. So when I got home, I looked up Elizabeth Smart. I'm like, I think she's only like 37 or 38. I'm like, she looks so young.
She looks so young.
Yeah, she looked so young and she was just so gorgeous. And it's so funny how you think sometimes, would I recognize somebody that was a star? Would I recognize them if I was walking down the streets of New York? You think, I don't know if I'd recognize, John Hamm or something like that. And then I go, oh, I think you would, because I mean, right away, I was like, oh, and I thought it was one of her daughters or something. Cause I thought, they can't be her because she's like a mom and she's so young, but it was her. She looked great, fabulous. I love, we can't even talk about that because that's a whole nother podcast. But the fact that she was there was like the most beautiful thing in the world to me. How she's just accepted her body. She's training her body. She loves herself. And I'm just like, she is this poster child for trauma and recovery and setting the example. It was so beautiful. Anyway, so Eliza and I were talking and she said she's about my age. And I was like, well, I don't know how old anybody is anymore. You look around, you go, how old are you? I don't know how old anybody is,
Yeah.
And so it's like my husband and I, because we live in Scottsdale, and Scottsdale is like the retirement capital of the world. I've never seen so many old people in my life. So we're always walking around going, how old do you think those people are? And you're like, I don't know, 80, and then you hear them talking, you're like, no, they're our age. I'm like, what? They just parked in the handicap parking. They both got out with a cane. What's going on here? But Eliza, yeah, her body was just amazing. And that's beautiful. Now, did she, because of her age, was she going through perimenopause or any kind of menopausal thing? Is that part of her life yet? Or has she not hit that point?
She's starting to experience some symptoms of that. So they're like, and it could have been a result of being in the contest prep too. And just with calories being lower, that she, like her cycle was a little bit wonky. So it's like she finished her period. And then like 2 weeks later, she's like, I was having spotting again. And those things I know can happen with perimenopausal symptoms, but also when you're pushing yourself for a contest, like a show lean physique, that can happen as well. Because as women, we are just more, like you said, we're more complex than men with our hormones. So I think she's starting to get into that, but not a whole lot. And it's interesting because it really didn't affect her progress. Because oftentimes when I see that happen with clients, it's like, oh, this could maybe stall fat loss, make it a little bit harder, but she was fine. So
interesting. Yeah. One of the things that I learned, which might be helpful for any of the women that are listening, when I was 18, I had a cyst on one of my ovaries. So I had one of my ovaries removed. And I read later on that can cause menopause to come on earlier if you're only working with one ovary. And so by the time I was 48, I was almost in complete menopause. And I don't remember going through any huge, horrible, night sweats, the whole bit. I had a little bit of maybe I'd be standing there talking to someone and all of a sudden I could kind of feel little beads of sweat.
Yeah.
But this was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I don't know if it was the ephedra that I was taking or menopause. So remember when ephedra came on, you're probably too young, but ephedra came on and you could just get it over the counter. And it was like, oh, it was beautiful. You'd take a little pill and then you'd go, I'm going to go run 7 miles. Goodbye. Then they had to take it off the market because, of course, people were abusing it. But those were the good old days. Anyway, so
yeah, I've heard of it. But yeah, I was in the 90s, I was a teenager. So
exactly. So it wasn't until I was in my 60s when I went and had some blood work done, and they came back and they said, well, basically, you don't have any hormones at all. Okay. So that's when I started hormone replacement therapy. It was amazing. Like the first thing I remember was my progesterone. I remember taking that and all of a sudden I was like, good night. And I had the best night's sleep. It was so beautiful. And then of course the estrogen, this one I still am having a hard time with. My body is very sensitive to estrogen. We've gone to the cream, which seems to be working better. I tried injections and that actually sent me I started spotting. After all these years of nothing, I was doing injections. I started spotting. As a matter of fact, I had started it and I was at a gym in Utah. I mean, I felt like a 12-year-old. I go into the bathroom and I'm like, crud, I'm going to have to go home, And of course, this bathroom at this gym in Utah had no feminine products in the gym whatsoever. And so I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm 70 years old and I'm having to leave at this. I'm not doing that. And then of course there's the good old testosterone. And I love that as well. So I'm completely on hormone replacement therapy. So do you have, any of your older clients have you recommended that they get some blood work done and some hormone testing?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for running lab work, especially when there's symptoms that could be corresponding with perimenopausal symptoms. And like you said, sleep is huge. And a lot of women really, really struggle with sleep. If you can get double check to make sure that your sleep hygiene routine is good, you've got your room cool, you're doing all the things, but then you can really reinforce things by taking a look at your blood work. And if there's things that you can do to optimize and you want to do it, then I am fully on board with them doing it, and actually have a clinic out of Florida that I'll refer my clients to if they don't have a local practitioner that they want to work with.
Interesting. And I know that there were studies that were done, I think it was in 2002, that totally just put women, don't take hormones. It causes, estrogen causes breast cancer, and they took everything off the market. And then there's a lot of other doctors that say, well, you're 60 years old. Why do you need to take hormone replacement? They put women in these boxes. Well, you're not reproductive, years are over and you've already gone through menopause. So whatever, who cares? And you got to find a new doctor. If that's the kind of response that you get from a doctor, you need to find a new doctor. So I'm glad that you have someone that you can refer people to, because what people don't understand is it's not just muscle, it's your brain, it's your bones, it's your tendons, it's everything about your body. And you've got these women that are worried about falling, they're worried about their bone density, and you're like, it's called estrogen. That's part of it. And tell me about, when you're working with the older women, it's not, there comes a time in your life when it's not just about what does my body look like. It really is about, look, I want to be able to carry my groceries in. I want to be able to get out of a chair on my own. I want to be able to get in and out of a car. I want to be able to walk into the grocery store, do my own grocery shopping, and come back and then take them into my home. You want to stay as independent as you can, and that requires muscle strength. So how do you do that with some of your older clients?
Yes, everybody resistance trains. They all do. And everybody is at their own level. Some people train from home, some people train at the gym. And so working to create programs that are conducive to their lifestyle, but also still challenging them. So doing things that they don't necessarily like to do, but are good for them. Because this resistance training, when you're squatting, leg pressing, doing walking lunges, those things translate into everyday stuff. And so it's not like, functional that we're doing this for that, but it translates into, if you do happen to trip, you'll have more agility to be able to catch yourself. Or just because you're weight training too, if you do trip and fall, the odds of you breaking your bones will be a lot less, because when you resistance train, it improves your bone density. And that's been proven time and time again.
So walk me through, because I've always resisted working with a trainer online. I have a friend that I follow, and I think her trainer is in England. So she does all her training online. And for me, I was like, well, how can that be? Because if I'm in the gym and my form isn't correct, I need my trainer to look down at my knee and go, oh, you're bringing your knees in. You need to move your knee out a little bit, or you need to sit up a little bit more and don't lean back so far when you're doing your lat pulls down. And so I feel like, well, if I'm working with a trainer online, how are they checking my form? People like you're so successful and your clients are so successful. So how does it work? How do you work with somebody online?
I have an exercise library. So the visuals of how I'm performing the exercises, included with some tips on each of the exercises, helps the clients to know how to set up. Not only that, every time I give my clients a new program, as I'm reviewing, I send a video to review their program. And I walk them through the exercises and will provide some tips and reminders on setup with exercises I know that, just generally speaking, are more challenging for clients to do. They've got those resources throughout the week. And then each week when they check in, they can send me 2 exercise videos, which I will critique when I do their check-in review video. So I'll go through the video, and I always want to see top sets, or the sets where they're getting as close as they can to failure or all the way to failure, because that's where form tends to break down, because you're lifting heavier, you've got more fatigue and stuff like that. And then that way that I can see how they're setting up, how their form is breaking down, how they're taking, like, are they lifting with enough intensity to really get 1 rep in the tank or all the way to failure, and challenge them to push themselves harder and make improvements on their setup and stuff.
When you see people in the gym that have their cameras set up, they might not be an influencer. They might be working with an online trainer, and they're videotaping so that they can critique or analyze their form. Is that what you're doing?
Because I mean, and it's good for anybody, I think, to do on occasion, because you don't know what you can't see. And so if you're doing upper back pull downs or bicep curls, you know, maybe you're hunching forward, or you're using a lot of body English. If you're trying to be more optimal in whatever context is optimal for you, like trying to be better, if you don't know what you're doing wrong, you can't fix it. So having that visual is really helpful.
If I came to you and I'm in Arizona, and let's say I've never done weight training before, and what's interesting is I have an app that I used, and honestly, I probably started weight training during COVID the most, because I couldn't go to the gym and I had dumbbells at home. So I started using this app. You know, you start out with 10 pounds, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe let's try 15. You go to 15. So when you're starting with someone, do you do like an evaluation to say, all right, we're going to start out with a 5 pound or a 10 pound. How many can you do? Or how do you get them started to know what weight they should start out with?
I don't watch their exercises initially, and I don't ask them what load they're doing, because for hypertrophy, load is relative.
Yeah.
And so we're not looking to lift as heavy as we possibly can, because there's a good chance that if you lift so heavy, then your form is broken down and you're not actually getting the muscle that you want to train in that exercise, or you're not getting the full range of motion. In fact, I had a mentor call yesterday with somebody, and we just went through exercises she's doing. She's not one of my clients. She's a posing client of mine, though. Right. And that was the thing with almost all of her videos, is she was lifting too heavy, that she wasn't actually getting the most out of the exercise that she needed. And I said, I know it's going to be a hit to your ego. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm lifting so much less than normal. I said, but you're going to notice that the quality is going to improve. So for somebody who's never resistance trained before, when they're getting started with me, I tell them, like, you're going to have to use your brain. Like, you're going to have to think, you're going to have to really count and go, you know, if I tell you you're going to be in the 12 to 15 rep range, if you get to that 15th rep and you're like, I don't know how many reps I have left.
Yeah.
And guess what? You're not close to failure. So obviously that load that you selected to get to 15 reps, which is what I want you to try to do, was too light. Then the next time you go, you've got to assess and increase your load and get to that place where when you get to that 15th rep, you're like, oh yeah, I can't do another rep. Like, and the only way to know what 1 rep or 2 reps in the tank is for you is to actually take some sets to failure. You've got to do that sometime. And because you don't know what failure is until you actually do it. And so that's the challenge, because it's like a mind over matter thing. It's just like our body wants to quit, but we've got so much more. I see it all the time.
It's so interesting. And one of the problems that I have is I'm by myself in the gym. And so I don't want to drop a dumbbell on my head. So let's say I'm doing chest presses or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I can do 8 chest presses with this 40 pound, but I can tell like I'm getting some pain up here, and I don't want to hurt myself. And I also don't want to drop this dumbbell on my head. So I feel like if I had a spotter there, or like when I'm working with my local trainer, he's there to, you know, hold up the dumbbell or evaluate. And so when you say to failure, when you're doing an online coaching, what you mean is, let's say you've got 2, you know, dumbbells and you're doing a shoulder press or something like that. What you mean is that you're like, I can't do it anymore, right? I can't lift all the way up. That's failure. Is that correct?
Yes. And it's like, that's such a good example, because when you're doing shoulder presses, it's so easy to go all the way to failure. You can absolutely fail safely with the shoulder press. Like, what happens when you can't do another full rep? You're just here.
Just drop. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just put the weights down. So it's just pushing yourself, but you've got to control that eccentric. So it's like a lot of people, they'll grind, 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 and then they drop. And then they like grind, 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 and then they drop. But it's actually hardest down here. So you want to control that eccentric. So you're really taking the time to like lengthen the muscles of your front delts, and then pushing up with a good, like, 1 second push, and then control back down as you're doing it.
So that's interesting. So it's not so much, okay, I got it up there. Then, like, it's really is like, and then can you bring it back down again?
Controlling that eccentric
down. And I love what you said about doing things so fast. Cause I one of my favorite things is when I'm in the gym and I'll see these people and they're like, do, 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 or they're doing clam lifts and like, do, 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 do. And I'm like, I don't think that's working. I think that's too easy. That was one of the biggest things. My trainer was like, slow down. You're doing leg extensions. You're like, doop, 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 doop. And you're like, nope, that's too easy. That's a hard thing for people that they don't realize as well as slowing down.
Yeah. And going back to Eliza, that was something when she would send me videos, if she's in the hack squat machine, she's just like drop and then come up, drop and come up. And I'm like, you need to switch your tempo. You need to slow down on the drop, because that's where it's most challenging, and then come up faster. So it's like opposite for a lot of people. And so you're slowing that tempo down, taking 4 seconds to do 1 rep instead of like 2 seconds where you're just going through the motion. Yeah. When you do that, you had brought up like talking about how Stacy Sims was saying something about like you start a little bit lighter and with a load, and as you get stronger, you increase the load. And so what's really happening there is your nervous system, like is understanding what muscle fibers you're using with every contraction. So you're teaching your body this new motor pattern, which is very complex. It's a very complex thing for our brain to figure out, to resistance train. And so every time you go through a rep or a whole set, you're teaching your body, like, these are the muscles that we're firing for this particular movement. And then you get stronger neurologically before you actually get stronger from like building more muscle fibers. So it's like those initial, like when you're first getting started in a program, it's pretty easy to progressively overload with adding load, because your nervous system is getting more efficient at the movement. And then from there, you get to a point where it feels like it's a sticking point, but it's really, you've got to that point where you have enough challenge from the load on the muscles to create that stimulus for muscle growth.
Fascinating. And I know that Stacy talks a lot about where your muscle, increasing your muscle and challenging your muscle, like you're saying, tearing it down and rebuilding it, is kind of a hormone replacement for what your body did when it was naturally producing the progesterone and the estrogen. And so that's why it's so important for, postmenopausal women we need to replace what our bodies were doing when we were constantly changing and moving things around. And so that's fascinating. Okay. Tell me what you did, because I know one of the things that Eliza said, which I found was fascinating, was her diet that you gave her. And now, do you concentrate more on macros, or are you very specific with like 4 ounces of chicken breast or 4 ounces of white fish? Or what do you send to your clients for their nutrition?
Yes. So most clients, it's macros. I'm a big proponent in like sustainability for women. And we have been told over the years, like, this is the food you need to eat in order to lose the weight. These foods are bad. These foods are good. And so trying to throw all that in the garbage and change the thinking so that you can create sustainable habits around nutrition is huge for me. So I like the macros. And that's the most efficient way for people when you are in fat loss. Like, it's just the easiest way to get the results you're looking for. But for a lot of women, they don't want to track macros for life. And so it's a really good tool because it helps to know what nutritional content you have in the foods that you're eating. But like I said, some people just don't want to do that. They feel that it starts to become obsessive and a little bit disordered. And it's not to say that that's the case for everybody. I'm somebody who loves to track macros. My husband is too. My husband's not a competitor or anything. He just tracks macros and he likes it like that. But for another person, they might feel that that's disordered. It's too much for them and it stresses them out. It's macros that we start with. And then from there, figuring out the best way that they want to track their food when they're living at maintenance and not worried about like being in a deficit. So it is some sort of routine, and it does require some sort of effort, but there's no magic food. So I wasn't ever telling you, Eliza, what to eat. I was just saying, like, you need to make sure you're eating this amount of food. You can decide how you want to do that, as long as you are eating some whole foods in there. Like, the majority is whole foods,
right?
But you can absolutely have the treats as well.
Interesting. Okay, so that's fascinating. And I know that as women, like you were saying, when Eliza started out, and as a runner, you really do get into that. And I think we've all been trained to do this starvation, and then, screw it. The weekend I'm eating whatever I want to, and then Monday morning you're like, how did I just gain 5 pounds over the weekend? I don't know. And so that is so common with women. I listened to another Instagram guy. I just absolutely love him, and he was talking about that, how women especially are they get on the scale. They have a number that they heard in a teen magazine, or Cosmo said that, Charlize Theron is 5'10" and weighs 102 pounds. And you're like, that's good. I need to weigh 102 pounds, And so you get on the scale and you're like, crap, I weigh 115. I'm a big fat slob. And then they tell you that you're going to build muscle, which you might gain weight. And you're like, I can't gain weight. If I would have, it's the difference is, like you said, you go into the gym, you meet with the guy at the gym. He's going to show you around and ask you what you're there for. Well, I'd like to lose some body fat and maybe build some muscle. Okay, well, we're going to put you on a calorie restrictive diet, and we're going to do this. And here's the cardio machines, and see you later, babe. And then a man comes into the gym and they go, I'd like to put on some muscle. Like, all right, dude, man, you got to start eating. We're going to take you over to the weights. And that's just the difference between how women and men have been kind of indoctrinated to think about our bodies. So how do you handle the women that are like, my pants are getting a little tight, I'm looking really good, but I'm freaking out. Like, my scale says I've gained 10 pounds. I know I look good, but I'm going to freak out. What kind of psychological therapy do you need to give to all of us that were raised with Jane Fonda, who's also 5'10" and weighs 102 pounds?
Yeah, that the scale is a nice tool. And so it goes into the conversation about how emotionally attached to you are the scale. Are you to the scale? And if it's like a really big deal to you and it affects your day, we're not going to use the scale. We'll go off how you're feeling and move from there. But in the same breath, I have this one client who has been with me for years. She grew up in a household where her mom would lock the cupboards and wouldn't let her eat, which created disordered eating behaviors for her. She's now a mom of 5 kids and stuff like that. And we've worked together for years where she's now finally found that freedom from the scale. And so there was years where we didn't have her doing that. But then we introduced it. So I said, this is going to be like exposure therapy. Like, you're going to step on the scale and you're going to do it every single day, just so you can get over the fear of the scale. And I said, I think you're to a point where that we can do that. Like, we've built enough trust and we have a good relationship that we could go in that direction. And it's been really fascinating to see with her. She actually just went on a vacation for her anniversary. They went to Hawaii. She came back. She weighed 8 pounds more than when she left after a week of just taking not tracking her food, not training, just having fun with her husband and eating food. And she said, it was really disturbing for me to see that, but I know that it's just water weight. It's from the flights, some inflammation, sodium, because I was eating a lot more food. He was eating out, and she's now down to it's been almost a week, and she's 2 pounds above her weight that she left. So for her, just, getting in there and actually seeing that we like, the scale is nice, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And these fluctuations happen not because you all of a sudden got fat,
right?
But it could be water retention. Like, if it's a person who's been resistance training and doing all the things they need to and putting on weight, if they're watching the scale relative to their circumference measurements, like, how is your waist doing? That also tells a really great story as well.
Interesting. That's so true. I don't, because my husband's a big scale guy. I don't know why. He gets on the scale all the time. And I'm a little scale adverse. And so, but when I do, and I know, it's like, well, that healthy popcorn that I love, that I enjoyed last night as I was watching TV, is also full of sodium. And so a lot of this is water weight. And I can, I have to deep breaths, and tell myself this is just water weight. But it's true. And it is a scary thing for me too. My trainer was always like, well, get on the scale. And I'm like, I'm not getting on the scale. I'll kill myself if I get on the scale. And I like to go on just how I feel. I can tell, where my stomach is, if I'm bloated or anything like that. Now,
Yep.
are there any foods that you are like, we're cutting out dairy, or we're cutting out this, or is there anything that you're like, look, we got a competition coming up in 15 weeks. We're not doing dairy because dairy causes bloating, blah, blah, blah. Is there anything that you are like, we're cutting this out?
No.
Nope.
It comes down to, because I'm getting weekly feedback. How's digestion?
Okay.
How's sleep? These type of things. And so if they're telling me that they're bloated or they're constipated or gassy, if there's something happening from like a bowel perspective, then we'll do a little deep dive into what they're eating and maybe make adjustments from there. But oftentimes it's from like too much fiber is usually what it is, which is, eating too many vegetables, because we want the volume of the veggies, but they have to like kind of take it back a little bit. But no food is forbidden if they're digesting it well. So.
Okay. And what about supplements? Are you putting your clients on supplements? Like I've got my creatine. I like my creatine.
Yes.
What are you telling your clients to take? BCAAs?
I love creatine. I highly recommend creatine. It's one of the most researched and studied supplements out there. It's been out there for years. And just like side note on creatine, Rene, like so many women are scared of it because they're like, oh, I hear that you like gain water weight when you take creatine. And I don't know. It was never an issue for me. And so when I have people who are like, oh, I'm afraid it's going to make me gain weight, I'm like, I don't know, like maybe, but it's just like more water retention, like more water in your muscles.
Yeah.
And so maybe the scale isn't the way to go for you if you're worried about creatine making you weigh a little bit more or something. But, but then women will go and get a boob job and then they're like, have 2 or 3 pounds more of
your water weight.
Yeah. It's like, but they don't care about that, but they care about the creatine.
That's what I always joke with my kids. I'm like, mommy only eats healthy. I do not eat artificial ingredients or any kind of coloring. And I have a Botox appointment next week. So it's like, yes, I will be injecting poison into my face, but I do not ingest it to my mouth,
Yes, we pick and choose our battles. We pick and choose.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So I love creatine. Omegas. I think all people, not just women, should be taking like good quality omegas. Vitamin D3 is also something that a lot of people are deficient in. And so making sure you're getting a therapeutic dose of vitamin D3, a good B complex vitamin that includes the methylated form of B12, the methylcobalamin, so that just in case you have that gene mutation for that MTHFR gene mutation, you just don't have to worry about that. So your body's absorbing and not just like it passing through. Because, sometimes when you take B vitamins, your urine goes fluorescent yellow. And it's just like excess. Yeah. So that, and then the last one would be taking magnesium biglycinate and doing that in the evening. We're just, as a human population as well, we're like deficient in magnesium, and it helps with sleep. There's like lots of benefits to that women especially could use. So those are like the top ones that I suggest for my clients to take. And I don't ever force anybody to take anything, but
right.
Yeah, just like these will help your quality of life if you do add these in.
It's so interesting because I remember, like I said, I've always tried to eat healthy, and I'm very proud of how I raised my kids. And they didn't have cold cereal for breakfast, but I was also kind of anti-supplement because I was under the impression that you can get your nutrition through good quality food. And then, like you say, and then you'd go in and get a blood work done. They're like, I raised my kids in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in the Midwest, but then we moved to the Pacific Northwest where there is absolutely no sunshine. I mean, it's cloudy days every day. And I'd go in there like, your vitamin D level is 0. You have 0 vitamin D, And then I started taking supplements, and it's like, oh yeah, your vitamin D level is great. Plus now I live in Arizona, so I get sunshine. But I remember there was a time when we were still living in the Pacific Northwest where I really wanted to get healthy. And so I decided I was going to go plant-based. Now, I didn't even understand the difference between eating plant-based and being a vegan. I just thought it was the same. But then I went to New York at a retreat to train you how to eat vegan. Like, this is great. So I'm sitting in this lady's apartment in Harlem, and she's the leader. And all the people have flown in from Australia, Connecticut, all over to attend her little training class.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with my leather purse and my leather shoes and a little pin I had on that had leather. And I'm listening to these people, and I'm like, oh, this is more about animals and not so much. And plus they looked sick. I mean, a lot of them were heavy. They had no pallor, it's their face. I'm like, you guys don't look healthy. What's going on here? Anyway, there was a doctor that came, and he was a vegan, and he said, if you are plant-based, you have to take a B12 supplement, or you will literally lose your mind. You have to have a B12, and that only comes from animal-based products. And I'm like, how about if we just ate meat like once a week, and they're like, I was like, okay, you guys are crazy. I'm not going to be vegan much longer. But anyway, but that was interesting how important these B vitamins are, and the magnesium and the omegas, and they really are. It's more than just a fitness fad, these vitamins that we're taking. There really is some mental health that goes into it. And it's kind of crazy, really, with the food that we're eating and where you live too, right?
Yes. And even just farming, just the way that the soil, if you really want to get into like the little nitty gritty stuff, the soil is not as nutrient rich as it used to be years ago. And
Right.
so it's not our fault. And it's not, you can buy the organic, you can do all the things, but you're still going to find that if you're trying to do the best you can from getting your vitamins and minerals, that you'll want to have some supplementation to make up just for the lack of what's in there with the food that we are eating. Because a lot of people just can't get that. And like you said, like vitamin D, the vitamin D3, like sunshine. Like, so if you're a sedentary person, if you're at a desk job a lot and you don't get that sunshine, you want to make sure you're getting that supplement. But we all know that you do want to get out for your nervous system to get out and get that sunshine. It's helpful for your circadian rhythm as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell everybody, are you taking new clients on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And how do they get a hold of you? And what's the procedure? How do you start out with a new client?
The best way is to go to my website, which is strengthtrainwithval.com. And on there, you'll see a link for an onboard consultation form. When you fill out that consultation form, I will be notified, and then I will email to schedule a Zoom call. And then we just go from there. And I can, I just bring people on board when it makes the most sense for them. If the fit is good. So if they feel like what I'm talking about, my philosophy with coaching is a good fit for them, then we move forward.
Okay. I love that, because I'm sure there are people that are like, I love wine and I'm going to drink it every day and I don't eat, and you're kind of like, well, maybe I might not be the trainer for you, because you have to eat food. You can't live on protein bars. Although I would love to live on protein bars, because I hate cooking. I hate cooking. I mean, I don't have it with me. I found a place here in Arizona, and they do have one. We live in Draper in the summertime when it's 116 degrees down here. And there's a place there. It's called
Fresh Fueled Kitchen.
Yes.
I was like, that's in Draper. Yeah. I grew up in Draper. I was over there.
Okay. So I love to go there and get my little salmon. They'll fix it however you want it, So I go there, and honestly, it's like I throw so much food away that it's like, economically, it makes more sense for me to go to Field Kitchen and just get something than to have you throwing away asparagus and all this kind of stuff that I bought and I'm not going to cook. I mean, I do really try to eat food and not live on protein drinks and protein bars, because I do read the labels and then I open them and eat them. But I do know what.
But you know what you're consuming.
I know what I'm consuming. This is bad, and I'm eating it. So at least I'm doing it consciously, right?
Yes.
Anyway, so that's fabulous. Well, I will put those links in the description here and encourage people to get. And I really think, you guys, this is a new way of going. I know, like, people like me that think you have to find a local trainer. We live kind of out in Arizona. And so when I work with my trainer, it's an hour drive for me to get there, and then an hour back, and then an hour workout. So that's 3 hours of my day. 2 of those, I'm sitting in my car and I want to kill myself by the time I get back. So, but I just always felt like I needed that one-on-one. But talking with you and talking with Eliza, I'm like, man, dang, this girl looks fabulous. And I really fell in love with you. And I just thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try this. So that's my next step, is to try to work with you as an online trainer. And I'm excited.
Oh my gosh, that would be so much fun. Yes.
It would be so great. So just as we're closing, give everybody an idea of like how you got into this, because this isn't something that you like have been doing your whole life.
No, you're totally correct. So I was 35 when I first really started getting into weightlifting, because I was of the mindset that lifting weights was going to make me look like a man. And so I was always afraid to lift heavy, and I would go to the classes. And I don't want to downplay like going to classes, like doing those things I think are fantastic. Anything is better than nothing. And those things have their place, and they're very good. And you can build community around that stuff. But I never resistance trained. And so I had just had my third child. I have 3 boys, and I was in the throes of postpartum depression. I got it really bad every single time. And remember going to my doctor's office, and he said, "You need to go lift weights." I don't know why he said that.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. And he's like, let somebody, babysit your kids. You need to go and make time for you. And so it was really good advice, because I kind of felt lost. Like I just needed to be this mom, and there wasn't anything beyond Val the mom. Like I needed just Val the woman, not Val the mom. I was wearing all these hats. But so I started lifting weights, and then my husband wanted to do a bodybuilding competition, and he found a coach that if the spouse prepped with, if you prep together, it was like a buy one, get one half off type of thing. And so he's like, "Do you want to do a bodybuilding competition with me?" And I was like, "Sure." I had no idea, Rene, like no idea what I was doing, or what was involved with any of that. So working with this coach, and my husband ended up, he didn't get lean enough in time to do the show. And I did it myself, and I was a deer in headlights. I was so nervous. I wasn't well prepared. I had no idea, like, this is what you do. You wear the heels and you get up on stage with a ton of tan. I was very timid, but it was something that I thought, this is something that I really want to prove to myself, that I can do something hard. And I think it's an opportunity for me to build confidence in myself and do something beyond just Val the mom. With that, the coach I had said to me, you did this in such an incredible way. Like you were really emotionally intelligent with things. And I think you would make a really good coach. Can I mentor you?
No.
That was how I got into coaching. And so a lot of people are like, "Oh, you just did a show, so you became a coach." I'm like, "No, actually, this guy said he wanted to mentor me, and I actually didn't want to, because I had a 2-year-old, I had a 2, 4, and a 6-year-old. And my husband was like, "Oh, do it, see what happens." And so here I am today. We got this really awesome coaching business, and I went on to keep competing. I earned my pro card in bikini in 2018. So masters, earlier you had mentioned about like masters, they call it's 50 and up. It's actually 35 and up.
No.
So I earned my pro card as a masters athlete when I was 35 years old. So
I just had my last baby at 32. I can't imagine. I'm gonna go do the masters now, honey. You little steppers. But you're right.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? So yeah, in the NPC and the IFBB, they consider you a master's was when you turn 35. And I'm like, I'm so not masters, but whatever. I'll take it. So yeah. That's my story.
I did one, and I can see money-wise why these competitions don't do the older, because the one I did in December there was one, they had a 60 and above category, and I was the only one that competed in that. And and even in this one, there was a ton of women in the Wasatch Warriors, but there were only 3 of us. It was the masters. Because why? Because Valerie Eliza was in it, and she's not quite 50 yet. So it must have been
45. Yeah.
45 and above. And then the other lady had just turned 50 like a week before. And I'm like, shut up. You guys are the age of my kids. Jeez. It's like, this is torture. This is not fair. But anyway, so interesting. Well, that is fabulous. And I love that. I love that. So we could talk for hours, but I appreciate you giving me your time. And I will encourage, once again, tell us your .com. It's Train with Valerie.
Strengthtrainwithval.com. Yeah.
Strengthtrainwithval.com. I'll put that in the in the description so people can find you, and then you will get back with them, and then you will have way too many clients and you'll be saying, Rene, please stop. I cannot take any more clients. That's our goal for today.
Yes, no more.
No more.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I'm so glad that Eliza had you there. And I love that you were backstage with her too. That was fabulous. One thing before we go, what's the deal with the honey backstage? I'm watching these women guzzle a mouthful of honey before they go on. And I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? What's going on? I texted my trainer and I'm like, why are we gulping honey? And one lady was like, oh, the other one was like, okay, just do 2 teaspoons. So she just like tried to squirt. And I'm like, why are we doing honey before we get on stage? Are you going to be doing some deadlifts when you're on stage? And I looked it up, and that's what people take honey, because it's like an energy thing before a workout. But have you heard of that? Like, why are they taking honey before they go on stage?
Yes. And so the thought process is, if you have honey or rice cakes right before you go on stage, it can make you a little bit fuller and vascular.
Okay.
And it really works with like men, because they're so lean. Like when, men bodybuilders are getting up on stage. But for most women, like especially in fit model and even for some bikini, like that's not necessary in order to make your physique peak for the show. Okay. It's like, if you're not ready on show day, you're not going to be ready once you put honey down your throat. So
that's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't think that we got 3 minutes. I don't know what that's going to do in 3 minutes, but whatever. So, but my trainer wrote back, I think it's the Winnie the Pooh syndrome. And I was like, it's just being funny. So, yeah. Anyway, well, Valerie, thank you so much. And we will definitely be talking again. And unfortunately, I think I'm going to be working out with you quite a bit.
That will be so fun.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
All right. So we are going to be closing this out. I will leave Valerie's connection in the description here. I really encourage you to work with someone online, because as I said, it's hard. It is really hard to find a trainer that's close to wherever your gym is or wherever you are. And it really is important to have someone that's evaluating your form, looking at your body and really evaluating where your strengths are, what you need to work on a little bit more. And you can do it. Like I said, I've got so many friends that work with online trainers. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. And Valerie's going to be my next trainer. So I'm excited. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please comment and I will send them Valerie's way and get back with you. So thanks for joining me today on She Became Visible. And once again, please subscribe, like, and share. It is so important. And I want to use the phrase that I love Steeman on the CEO podcast. I've got to develop an English accent, because these podcasters that have English accents are just, I love listening to them talk. But one of the things he says is, analytics are on, we can look up our analytics, and I see that there are a lot of views. There are a lot of people that are watching, but you're not subscribing. And it's so easy. I'm not asking for any money. I don't want your donations of any kind. I just want you to subscribe, like, and share. And the more subscriptions I have, the better I can draw in these fabulous guests like Dr. Stacy that I was talking about. I would love to have her on as a guest. And so it's really important to get the word out. And ladies, especially those of you in my demographic, it's a mindset that we just have to change. You can build muscle. You can change your body type. There isn't a standard, oh, you must be 70, therefore this is your body. That's not true. So thanks for joining me today. And we will talk about this more on She Became Visible. Thanks. Bye-bye.